Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Bucknuts Morning 5 on Monday, March 23rd, 2015. I am Dave Biddle. Most of the show will involve Bill Kurelic informing you of the big recruiting visits that will happen during Ohio State's spring football practices over the next few weeks. But I want to start off with a quick note on basketball. Ohio State exited the NCAA tournament with a 73-58 loss to Arizona on Saturday. The Buckeyes led by 6 in the first half and trailed by just a point at halftime, but it was all Wildcats in the second half. Freshman sensation D'Angelo Russell had one of his worst games of the season for Ohio State, as he was just 3 of 19 from the floor. But Russell is so special that he makes several impressive plays even when his shot is off. It's just too bad his shot was way off at the worst possible moment. But it was a treat watching him all season. As for Russell's future, the date you need to keep in mind is April 26th. That's the deadline for players to declare early for the NBA draft. Now, I firmly believe the decision has already been made and Russell will turn pro. But stranger things have happened, and until he announces he's leaving, there's still a chance he will return, however small it might be. If Russell does in fact leave, the 2015-2016 Buckeyes are going to be in big trouble because only 4 scholarship players will be returning to next year's team. They include Jayshawn Tate, who I think is a future star, the very disappointing Mark Loving, Keita Bates-Diop, who I think has a very high ceiling, and Cam Williams, who can provide instant offense but needs to improve defensively. The Buckeyes will also have a whopping 7 new players next season, including 5 true freshmen. The freshman class of Jaquan Lyle, Daniel Giddens, Austin Grandstaff, A.J. Harris, and Mickey Mitchell is ranked as the 6th best class in the country per the 24/7 Sports Composite. The Buckeyes will also have third-year sophomore Trevor Thompson, who sat out this season after transferring from Virginia Tech, and redshirt freshman Dave Bell, who redshirted this season. But 7 new players? That's a heck of a lot of turnover from one year to the next. I think this team is really going to struggle to score next season, presuming they don't have Russell. It'll be exciting to watch many new players, especially a group that's talented like this, but there could be some rough waters next season. I wonder if they'll be even good enough to make the NCAA tournament next year with such a young roster. All right, enough about basketball. As promised, I will now turn things over to the Dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic.
With the start of spring practice sessions again this week, that means it is definitely recruiting season for the Ohio State staff. Not that the staff ever really stops recruiting, but with spring practices starting up again, recruiting goes back to a very high level. So who are some of the biggest prospects visits coming up for the Ohio State staff? Well, this weekend on March 28th, tight end Luke Farrell plans to visit Ohio State. If the Buckeyes could add him to Jake Hausman, who of course is already committed to Ohio State, then they could be finished with their tight end recruiting for 2016 and have 2 great ones in the class. Defensive end Terrell Hall, who has committed to Ohio State, is also visiting the Buckeyes March 28th. I don't think there's any really thing to worry about as far as Hall and his Ohio State commitment, but still, it's always good to get him on campus again, and he is planning to be on campus again at Ohio State on Saturday. Also, before the end of the month, quarterback Tristan Wallace from Texas plans to visit the Buckeyes. He and Jarrett Guardano, who I have been saying for quite some time are the 2 quarterbacks that the Buckeyes are really targeting at this point for their 2016 class. Certainly, those 2 quarterbacks are very important for Buckeye 2016 recruiting. I spoke again this past weekend with defensive end Josh King from Illinois, and he tells me that his visit to Ohio State on March 30th is definitely on, and that is very big as he is one of the top overall prospects in the Midwest and certainly a great one to keep an eye on visiting Ohio State. Moving into April 11th, one of the Buckeyes' premier wide receiver targets, Austin Mack, plans to visit Ohio State. He's a guy that the Buckeyes have long targeted, and while Notre Dame is making gains with Austin Mack, I still like Ohio State's chances, at least at this point, to land Austin Mack, who will be announcing his decision in June. Also, offensive lineman Liam Eichenberg from Cleveland St. Ignatius visits Ohio State April 17th and then into the spring game on April 18th. He remains a huge priority for the Buckeyes. His decision continues to be down to either Ohio State or Notre Dame, and I continue to like the Buckeyes' chances slightly over the Fighting Irish, but his visits to Notre Dame and Ohio State in April will tell the tale, and then he will soon after make his decision. As I mentioned, Eichenberg will stay over on his visit into the Ohio State spring game on April 18th, and the list for visitors for the spring game is still, of course, formulating since it's still weeks away. But another top offensive line target, Michael Jordan from Michigan. I spoke with him again, and he tells me he is definitely going to be at that Ohio State spring game, and certainly every time he gets on campus, that's a good thing for the Buckeyes, and he has been on campus a number of times and is very, very interested in Ohio State. Linebacker Brendan Ferns may visit Ohio State for the spring game. It's not certain right now because that's the ACT date, and he might go ahead and take the ACT and then wait until after the end of spring ball to visit Ohio State again. But either way, he is going to visit Ohio State again, probably sometime either the spring game or late April. Then moving to the class of 2017, defensive back Marcus Williamson from Westerville South will be at the spring game, as will athlete Bruce Judson, who has committed to Ohio State. But, of course, Judson is still considering some other schools, though he does say he is committed to Ohio State 100%, but still, every time you can get him on campus, that is a good thing for the Buckeyes. And of course, many of the Buckeyes' commitments for the classes of 2016 and 2017 will be at the spring game, including the number one running back in the country, Kareem Walker, and it's always good to get Walker back on campus at Ohio State. So there are some huge visits coming up in the coming weeks for Ohio State, and more will be added. And you can check the front row message board, and of course those visits will be added every time that one is confirmed. It's going to be a very exciting recruiting period the next few weeks for the Ohio State staff.
Thank you, Bill. Huge visits coming up indeed. Excellent information on what fans can expect these next few weeks on the recruiting front. The Buckeyes hit the practice field tomorrow, and while practice is closed to the media, we will interview head coach Urban Meyer afterward around 11 a.m., so look for a story and video on what Coach Meyer has to say on the site tomorrow afternoon. Also, Thursday's practice this week is open to the media. One more quick note, I want to congratulate the Ohio State wrestling team for winning the program's first national championship on Saturday. And how about Logan Stieber winning his fourth individual national championship? It's incredible what head coach Tom Ryan and those guys are doing with the wrestling program. Congrats to all of those guys. What a grueling sport, and it's fun to see them rewarded in this fashion. Thanks to Bill Kurelic for his insights, and thanks to you for listening to the show. I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day. Take it away, best damn band in the land.